This is the Where We Live World Cup. Beep. La Copa del Mondo di Dove Viviamo for Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Frankie Graziano. The world is watching, and the AP reports 7.2 million Americans watched the World Cup opener. Live viewership on Fox was up 88% from the 2018 opener. That's what my producer, Katie Pellico, tells me. Christine Huber, a sports analyst who organizes local Team USA watch parties in the New Haven area, says she's observed an increase in local attention on the games. She and other local broadcaster Shawn Mecchi, a good friend of mine, join us in a moment to discuss and spotlight the teams and players to watch. Coming up, we'll also talk to someone who's actually at the World Cup. Right now on the line, we got NPR sports correspondent Tom Goldman. He's going to join us from Qatar. And plus, Omid Namazi joins us, assistant coach for Connecticut's top pro soccer team, Hartford Athletic, and a former coach for Iran. More on that in a moment. First, my guests at this time, Shawn Mecchi and Christine Huber. Thank you guys for joining us today on Where We Live.
Good morning.
Glad to be here, Frankie.
Good morning, Shawn. Hey, guys, if you're watching at home or listening, are you watching the World Cup? Who are you rooting for? You can join the conversation, 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR, or find us on Facebook and Twitter. Hey, just quickly, before I get to questions, guys, a quick primer for the or semi-uninitiated. Where we're at now in the World Cup is the completion of the group stages. Groups of 4 teams play 3 games. So like Country W plays Country X first, and then Y and Z. There are 8 groups. You get 3 points for a win, a point for a tie. Top 2 point scorers go to the knockout stages, which begin tomorrow, and that's where we find the U.S. men's national team in a matchup against European soccer power, the Netherlands. USA and the Netherlands, 10 a.m. Saturday. Christine, a second-place finish for the Americans in Group B. Talk to us about the USA in the group stages.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've been so much fun to watch. I mean, and everyone is just getting on board. They're going to watch parties. Everybody's tuning in. And like you said, the numbers and the viewership shows it.
Yeah, Shawn, the U.S. men's national team, they got the big goal when it counted in the big moment from big star Christian Pulisic, who insists that he didn't get hit below the belt when it needed it against Iran. We got a inventive play from Serginho Dest and Weston McKennie in the big one against England, and then there was the disappointing Welsh tie in the opener. What do you make of the U.S. men's national team thus far?
I think they've been kind of who we know that they are, but the best version of that. We knew our midfield was exceptional going in, that MMA midfield, as they call it, Musa, McKennie, and Adams. And I think they've really been smothering what the opponent has tried to do, even if it's mighty England. I thought we looked the better in the midfield area. We haven't scored a lot of goals, but we've also not conceded many. Only 1 goal conceded, and it was a penalty kick. So if you can keep the other team off the score sheet, you've got a really good chance to win.
Christine, what do you make of the makeup of this team? Like I said, we have Serginho Dest and Weston McKennie doing some of the playmaking. Strong play in the Iran game from the number 10 there, Christian Pulisic. What do you think about the team so far?
Yeah, what's insane is how young they are. So last game, they had the youngest starting lineup so far in the entire World Cup. So that's just, obviously awesome for the future. And you're talking about players, we got to give a hat off to the local guy, Fairfield U player, Matt Turner in goal, has just really stepped up. And like Shawn said, he's only let in 1 goal, and it was a penalty kick.
1 goal for Team USA thus far. Netherlands also allowing just 1 goal this far. Saturday, 10 a.m., a big game. Where are you guys watching? Christine, where are you watching the game?
Well, I'm part of New Haven American Outlaws, and that's the USA supporters group. We support, the men's team, the women's team, and we will all be at Trinity in New Haven on Orange Street. These past 2 weeks have just been crazy there. For the England game, they had to shut the doors 40 minutes prior to kickoff. So they're going to open at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So get there early, get your seat, and join in with the rest of America.
Who are the American Outlaws?
They are the U.S. supporters group. So they organize, if you ever watch a game or you see it on TV and you hear people, the chants or the clapping in the background, that's all American Outlaws that set that up. So I've been around with the organization. I go to a bunch of different World Cups and always meet up with the guys from across the country.
Shawn, you bleed red, white, and blue, but I think you're like in kind of like a different basket here. Like you might be with the Hartford AO chapter. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Where'd you watch that? Where'd you watch that Wales game?
So the Wales game actually got together with a bunch of guys from my over 30 team in the Farmington Valley League. We actually went over to TJ's in Newington and watched the game on the big screens there. So took a half day off of work and made sure to make a real effort of it to sit down and watch the game uninterrupted.
This was different for you, but there are so many American Outlaws chapters in Connecticut. I visited with the Hartford folks in I believe it was the 2018 World Cup before they had that. Where are you watching the game tomorrow, Shawn?
There's some talk about different pubs around the area. I honestly think I might just watch it in the living room. That gives me a chance to really sit down and analyze and enjoy the game properly. Plus, very excited with my 7-year-old son to get him involved, and maybe not ready to take him to the bar with all the Outlaws just yet.
Outlaws, a bar, and a 7-year-old. I don't know about that, but nonetheless, the game will be played tomorrow, and it will be one to watch. Hey, Christine, just more basically, the New York Magazine and a sports writer for the New York Magazine reported that more Americans watched the Women's World Cup final in 2019 that watched that year's NBA Finals or the World Series. Do you feel like U.S. viewership is growing?
Oh, for sure. The platforms are obviously helping. The broadcasting is getting better for men's and women's game. Camera angles, the production, everything from top to bottom. And I tell you, I did a lot of work with the NWSL. All their numbers were just outrageous. You're talking Angel City their goal was the average attendance of 10,000 was their goal, and they got around 20,000. And it's now the hot thing to do in LA. So women's soccer is on the rise, and it's just going to keep growing.
Yeah, Shawn, that's what I'm thinking. Christine teed that up for us well. The U.S. women's national team, I imagine they have a big role in America caring more about soccer.
Oh, without a doubt. The success of our women's program is renowned across the world. I think from a television ratings perspective, the Men's World Cup has traditionally outdrawn the women's, but people love a winner, and our women's team has been so successful that I think it's brought a lot of fans in from both sides, not just the men's side, but the women as well.
Goalkeeping strong in Connecticut, as I understand it. We had Matt Turner of Team USA playing collegiate soccer in Connecticut at Fairfield University. And then we have our big star on the women's team that's out of Stratford, Alyssa Nair, who plays now for the NWSL and the Chicago Red Stars. And you'll find Christine Huber doing a lot of these NWSL games. Hey, I want to talk more about the World Cup here. We'll talk a little bit more about local soccer in a moment, but I want to drill into this World Cup and talk about some of the games and the players here. Can you guys offer me a big surprise thus far from the Men's World Cup here and something that really surprised you?
I think the biggest surprise that we've seen so far was Saudi Arabia beating Argentina. It was the one game that I didn't wake up at 4:45 in the morning to catch the 5 o'clock game live. The one time I decided to sleep in a little bit. I wake up and I tune in, and it's 2-1 in favor of Saudi Arabia, and they knock off Lionel Messi and crew. Didn't end up working out for them to advance out of the group stage, but what a shocker that one was. Yeah,
we had 2 big wins from Argentina to survive that, because that was certainly, I think it was like 2001 or something like that, was the favorites for Argentina in that matchup, and they end up losing. Christine, what's your big surprise thus far?
Mine is Germany not advancing. And what's crazy about that is they're actually leading the World Cup in goals with 10, and yet they don't advance.
Yeah, 4-time champions, just like Italia, 4-time champions, but Germany actually made the World Cup, and they are out. That was maybe one of the games of the tournament. We can get into the games of the tournament in a second, but that Germany playing Costa Rica with a spot on the line in the final 16 was a big one. Germany losing to Japan was a big surprise in this one. For me, Morocco winning its group, that was incredible, and it sets up for an amazing matchup with Spain in the final 16. So that's what I'm talking about for a surprise. Match of the tournament thus far. Which one are you guys picking? You got a particular game you're watching here?
Oh, well, I mean, it's obviously going to be tomorrow, right?
But beforehand, did you guys have one that you saw as a match of the tournament?
Well, the biggest one for me was obviously USA England. Just because what goes on here, we have so many great English fans here in the States that, we did the whole slogan of, hashtag it's called soccer and it's not called football. And obviously Beckham getting involved with the commercials and everything. So I think England USA was probably pre-tournament the highlight. It was a little bit of a chess match and not the most exciting soccer game to watch, but that was definitely a start on my paper.
Shawn, what about you?
Man, I think the thing that's most exciting to me about the World Cup is seeing different teams from around the world have a chance to play each other in these super high stakes matches. And kind of a shocker favorite match for me so far was Cameroon-Serbia.
I can't believe you said 3-3. That. I didn't think you were going to say that. Go ahead.
The game ended 3-3. You had Cameroon coming back from behind to equalize after being down 2 goals. Just an absolutely exciting match. I mean, Japan has been great to watch. They've had a couple of thrilling come from behind victories as well. So that's to me what's been the most exciting match.
On my rundown, you won't see this, but I have Serbia-Cameroon. 6 goals in that matchup. That was so shocking. I was watching that getting ready with the kids the other day. So surprised to see 6 goals in a World Cup where we've unfortunately seen a lot of goalless games. Hey, I wanted to talk more about stars. Just really quickly, I can't really get into this because we don't have a lot of time, but give me a star really quickly that you've enjoyed watching in this World Cup outside of the U.S. men's national team.
It's got to be Mbappe for France. I mean, he didn't play much last game because they benched all their starters, but France is definitely a powerhouse team right now.
Go ahead, Shawn.
Yeah, Mbappe has been really exciting to watch. I think kind of the breakout star of the tournament is someone that the U.S. is going to run up against tomorrow in Cody Gakpo. Plays for PSV Eindhoven in the Dutch Eredivisie. He was rumored before the tournament to be headed for a big money move. But I heard Jesse Marsh from Leeds United give an interview basically saying they had agreed to terms with him prior to the tournament, but his stature in this event, tying for the Golden Boot lead at the moment, has elevated his price tag so high that Leeds are no longer in the running to sign him.
Mbappe, probably the best number 10 in the tournament so far from what we've seen. Hey, before we close out this segment, we have 2 different people. I'm not trying to put you guys against each other, but we got basically a Hartford area guy in Shawn and a New Haven area person in Christine here. So just make the case here. What about I'll start with Shawn here. Hartford Athletic has been a breath of fresh air in this area in terms of having a pro soccer team, a top pro soccer team to watch. What do you think about our prospects going forward for soccer here in the Hartford area?
Oh, I think it's massive. It's been demonstrated over the past 5 years that people are embracing Hartford Athletic as a team. We already knew that the state of Connecticut and the Hartford DMA were a tremendous soccer market to begin with. But to close out the season, I think the Athletic had something like 8 or 9 consecutive sellouts and just a tremendous attendance throughout the year. And then the announcement of Tab Ramos as the coach and some of the excitement that's drummed up. They've already had some big name signings in the offseason. Yeah. I think the momentum is real, and I think it'll continue. And
he's not messing around about that DMA. Hartford in the top 5 among markets watching the England-USA matchup. Incredible. And just a quick, and New Haven's in that demographic generally. Christine, what are your thoughts about pro soccer in New Haven and maybe an opportunity to get a big club there one day? Can you support it down there?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. The big thing is with New Haven, it's such a melting pot. And what do people love in the world? They love soccer. So now you're bringing everybody together to support a local team. And again, what we're seeing now, the ratings, everything's high up with kind of not the best times right now in Qatar, like game watching times. So now this is all going to lead up to 2026 World Cup when it's here.
From Connecticut Public Radio, this is Where We Live. I'm Frankie Graziano. You can hear these guys calling Yale University soccer and on other area soccer matches Thank you to local soccer broadcasters Shawn Mecchi and Christine Huber for joining us on Where We Live. You can join the conversation, 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR, or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Frankie Graziano. At this year's World Cup in Qatar, we've seen political tensions impacting the games and teams that fans root for. Here to discuss, Tom Goldman, a sports correspondent for NPR. He joins us right now from Qatar. That's right, Tom is covering the games for NPR in person. Welcome to Where We Live.
We don't get to talk soccer, Frankie?
Oh, we're gonna talk about soccer, but I got some business for you to take care of here.
Christine and Shawn had all the fun. Come on,
they
man.
did. Well, you know what? Let's open up with some fun and talking about soccer before we get into the hot and heavy issues we have to. But first, let me just say that folks can join in on a conversation. They can call 888-720-9677. Call us now, 888-720-9677. Tom, you heard us talk about that game that's happening tomorrow, that big game for the United States playing European soccer power, the Netherlands. And we can talk soccer because you've paid attention to some of these news conferences that are previewing the game. So what can you tell me about the Americans and what they're saying about this Dutch challenge?
Well, it's a challenge. Of course, you never go into these pre-tournament, pre-match press conferences and say, we got this one wrapped up, man. This is going to be so easy. No, both teams are very respectful of the others. And, the U.S. knows it's got its hands full with the Dutch team, ranked 8th in the world, finished first in its group. Although people who watched the Dutch closely said they were kind of sluggish. Apparently, it is a sport. It is a pastime in the Netherlands, like many soccer-crazy countries, to criticize the coach and the team constantly. And so there's been nothing but criticism coming out of the Netherlands about the boring play of the Netherlands and how they just, kind of have underachieved while they've been winning their group. I think that's dangerous to say, and I think it's going to fuel them. And they're a very tough team. Shawn talked about Cody Gakpo, or as the Dutch say, Hagpo, as I learned today. And, he's tough. There are a number of other players who are very good. Louis van Gaal is probably the superstar of that team, and he's their coach, a very funny guy. And actually, what was interesting in his part of the press conference today, he spent most of the time fielding questions about, after this World Cup, whether he'll take over Belgium's national team, because they have a vacancy now after they crashed out of the World Cup. But what the U.S., probably the most important thing the U.S. said, Coach Greg Berhalter, is that Christian Pulisic looks pretty good, and he's probably a go for tomorrow. Listeners who love soccer probably know all about the pelvic contusion he suffered in that amazing goal.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, right. And by amazing goal, I mean a 3-part goal, that beautiful over-the-top pass by Weston McKennie, Serginho Dest with a header to a streaking Pulisic, who put it in and crashed into the Iranian goalkeeper at the same time and was down, as everyone saw. He's been mending, and it really looks like he's a go. Josh Sargent, the other guy injured in that match, looked like I believe it was an ankle injury, they were saying. According to Greg Berhalter, he's not so sure about him. So that's the injury update. The U.S. is just sky high, Frankie, because the pressure is off. The pressure is really off after getting out of the group stage. That was going to be a forum, as you know, on how this team, validation basically of the last 4 years, and they got it. And so now that they're into the knockout round, I think they feel loose. They feel like, just going to take it minute by minute, as they say, and we will see what happens with that defense. They've got to be respected. And if they can start putting the ball in the goal a little more consistently, who knows?
You brought up Christian Pulisic. And speaking of loose, Americans have such a fascination with potty stuff. We like when Lamar Jackson has to go to the bathroom during NFL games or something like that. We're talking about Christian Pulisic and whether or not he got hit below the belt. Could you just close the loop on that with this pelvic contusion and how he's doing?
Can I say that on Connecticut Public Radio?
You said pelvic contusion. Pelvic contusion.
Yeah. Can I say what he said?
Yeah. Go ahead. Just censor that last word.
He said he didn't get hit in the bleep. So I mean, look, everyone's saying it, everyone's writing it. I think NPR is the only one that's not saying it, but he didn't get hit in the testicles. Let's just say that, Frankie. We won't use
beautiful.
So
this is the kind of analysis we go to Tom Goldman for.
Look, not that matters at all. He really did get a pelvic bone contusion, very, very painful. But as I said, according to Coach Greg Berhalter, he's looking pretty good for tomorrow.
Pulisic had that goal against Iran, the goal that lifted the U.S. men's national team into the knockout stages. USA and Iran. We're going to start to get tight and tense here, Tom. I mean, you got countries going up against one another in the World Cup. Nationalism high, tensions become high when countries facing one another happen to be geopolitical rivals. And Tom Goldman happens to be at that game. What was that like?
The Iran-U.S. game?
Yes.
Amazing. It was amazing. As I have said before about that match, it was at a stadium with Al Thumama that holds the attendance that night was 42,000. I had been to the Mexico-Argentina match where Messi basically saved Argentina's bacon, shall we say, with his amazing goal. And then, of course, they tacked on another. That was a must win. There were nearly 90,000 people. That is so many people, Frankie. But the 42,000 at the Iran-USA match were louder. It was so amazing. There was so much buildup, both soccer buildup and political buildup. And it was just, oh my God, a din that, well, as I mentioned on the air before, I could not hear myself talk. I was saying words, I could not hear myself talk. It was incredible. And that lasted for about 5 minutes until everyone's adrenaline just kind of, plummeted. And, but the excitement was there the entire match. It really was amazing. And we never saw, there was a lot of concern about, the clashes between Iranian fans who had brought the troubles in Iran across the Gulf to Qatar. And you had Iranian fans who were against the government, which is cracking down on protesters, I'm sure, as your listeners know. And you had pro-government people, and they had clashed before the Wales match, the Iran-Wales match. And so there was concern, will that bubble up even more at the U.S.-Iran? And then you had the U.S. Soccer Federation throwing gasoline on the fire with their, of course, with the doctoring of the Iranian flag on social media as a way to support the protest movement in Iran. But it kind of backfired. It did it without the team's knowledge, and the team had to spend its press conference before that match answering all the questions. It was a very uncomfortable time. But anyway, so we were expecting everything. And it was, as always, when you expect a lot, it doesn't happen. And it really didn't. I walked around the stadium for about 90 minutes beforehand looking for flashpoints. All I saw were American and Iranian fans hugging, trying to outshout each other, waving flags.
God, I love soccer.
It's all good.
But that's the thing. I mean, like we're trying to have fun with this show and talk about the actual game and things like that. But there's just a dark dark part of soccer that people just don't understand in America. They may not, unless you watch a documentary. We've heard about what happened to Andres Escobar in Colombia, and now this is why I want to focus on Iran, because we're talking about USA and maybe the pressure being off against the Netherlands, but when Iran plays soccer, there's just a different kind of pressure on them. Before opening kickoff, we had the tensions over treatment of women in Iran boiling over. A Kurdish woman died in Iranian police custody in September, igniting protests across Iran over the fall. How, in your opinion, I know you did a story on this, how have not in your opinion, but how have the Iranian players been impacted by these rising tensions at home?
It was really tough, Frankie, and I felt really bad for them. Ultimately these guys, and all the teams in this World Cup have been asked about politics, and certainly the issues in Qatar that got a lot of publicity before the tournament began, and a little bit when it started, and as it's gone along. But the Iranians, as I mentioned, were dealing with the real sad and tragic things that are going on in their country, and of course, Americans were really happy about winning that match, but the Iranian sadness at the end of that match, players, crumpled on the field and looking stunned or crying. You just knew that this was just more than having lost a soccer match. They had been through so much. They had, on the one hand, before the match against England, they had not sung the national anthem while it played, and apparently were visited, according to a CNN report, they were visited by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard saying, don't do that anymore, or your families back in Iran will pay for that. And so you saw in the next two matches against Wales and the US, the Iranians mouthing, some of them barely mouthing the words. I think they really didn't want to do this. And they became a symbol of the fight. And these are young guys who just wanted to play football. And it was difficult for them. And I think at the end, what you saw was the disappointment, the sadness that they weren't able to win, and they weren't able to use football to elevate them over all this other stuff that had crowded in on their World Cup.
They lose the big match, and then they got to go home afterwards and deal with whatever consequences there are. Iran is an Islamic republic. Qatar is an Islamic nation. And, Tom, homosexuality is forbidden in Qatar, which brings us to the next controversy here, the erasure of imagery that supports the LGBTQ community at the World Cup. One particular item, an armband. What's the significance of that symbol?
Well, the armband, a number of European countries had said that they were going to wear the armband, a rainbow-colored armband with the words "One Love" written on it, as a show of support for the LGBTQ communities, for diversity. And one of the big kerfuffles at the beginning of this World Cup was the hammer came down, and they were told by FIFA, these European captains who are going to wear this armband, that if they do, then they faced a yellow card at the beginning of the match. And so the teams backed away, and they said, we support these things. We're angered by this, but we don't want to put our teams at risk by, if our captains get another yellow, then they're out. A lot of people said that was kind of a cowardly stance to make. They said, look, you are the players. You have the ultimate leverage here. And if you forced a moment, if Harry Kane of the Three Lions went on the field with a rainbow-colored armband with One Love on it and forced a referee to raise a yellow card, just think what position that would put FIFA in, how embarrassing that would have been. But the players, the teams backed away, and so there you have it. Since that all happened, I think it was at the beginning of this week, the news was that actually FIFA had finally gotten around to relaxing its rule on rainbow-colored paraphernalia, whether it be, not armbands for fans, but for hats, T-shirts, flags, and so on. At this point, that seems to have died down. Although when this whole thing ends, it's still going to be incredibly difficult, as you said, illegal, if you are a member of the LGBTQ community in this country. I talked to someone who has talked to members of that community here, and they are all closeted, and this won't change anything, certainly. A sad situation. It had this publicity, but probably when everyone leaves, things will remain the same.
Tom, the head of the international governing body of soccer, FIFA, said to reporters right before the World Cup started, "I feel gay." That was part of an attempt by FIFA president Gianni Infantino to make all feel welcome, but I'm imagining that's not the case. I want to talk more about this. We just don't have a lot of time. We only got about a minute left, and we have to talk about this is the way our conversation kind of ebbed and flowed. This is going to be the most important topic maybe, and we don't get to spend too much time on it. But migrant workers, a Qatari official says that 400 to 500 people died in the run-up to the World Cup, helping build the infrastructure to support the tournament. Tom, they had to build 7 of the 8 stadiums from scratch, essentially, and all the other infrastructure to support it. And now we're hearing that many people died to do that.
Which was quite an admission, Frankie, because up to then, Qatari officials said that 3 people had died related to the work conditions. This remains an issue, too, that will go on. Rights groups are passionate about keeping the attention on this. There have been reforms. There have been labor reforms in Qatar, including a minimum wage that they've installed. They got rid of the kafala system, which was a system where employees were tied way too tightly to employers, and they were abused through that system. But rights groups say that there's still a lot of work to do, and that the reforms aren't necessarily enforced that strictly. So another one of these issues that we talk about pre-World Cup, during the World Cup. Who knows what will happen when the World Cup packs up its tent and leaves after December 18th.
And it could be thousands that had died when maybe a different number comes out. This is Where We Live for Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Frankie Graziano. Tom Goldman in Qatar, the legendary Tom Goldman, helping us out covering this World Cup from there for NPR. Thank you for joining us here on Where We Live.
It was great fun. Thanks, Frankie.
You can join the conversation, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. This is Where We Live for Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Frankie Graziano. In America, we have what's called the United States soccer system, a pyramid, so to speak, topped by Major League Soccer. But right underneath that, in the second level, you'll find Connecticut's top pro soccer club, Hartford Athletic, playing in the USL Championship. In 2023, Athletic will play its 5th season. They play their games in an up-to-date Dillon Stadium near 91 and the Colt Onion Dome. It's a 5,500-seat stadium called Trinity Health Stadium that's also home to the state high school soccer championships. Joining us now representing Athletic is the team's assistant coach and director of scouting, Omid Namazi. Hello, Omid.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here on your program.
Thank you for coming in this morning. And if you got a question about Athletic or want to talk about local soccer right now, you can join the conversation, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Omid, I want to talk to you about Athletic's place atop the local soccer landscape. I want to talk to you about Athletic, but first, the game on everyone's minds at the moment is the FIFA World Cup, the big game in town. Back in 2014, you helped Iran qualify for the World Cup as an assistant. You worked on that squad with a man you work with now at Athletic, Glastonbury native and CT soccer legend Dan Gaspar. But Omid, I want to start this interview with you asking about Iran because perhaps more than anyone at this World Cup, it's a team of players having to play through controversy on the home front. What are your thoughts on what the players are going through at the moment?
Well, I mean, I really felt sorry for the players. They were placed in a very precarious position. There's a lot of pressure on them from both sides. People in Iran that are protesting, and you see, videos and clips of it shown every night on different news channels. They wanted these players to stand by them and make come up with a symbol as to what's going on back home. The players initially refused to do that. They wanted to concentrate on the World Cup and what the task at hand was. And, in the first couple press conferences by the players, questions were asked, and they said, we're not here to talk about politics. We're here to concentrate on the World Cup. And that did not sit well with the people in Iran. So they were getting a lot of pressure in social media and different avenues about not standing with their people. At the same time, they had a lot of pressure from obviously people that are connected to the government in order not to say anything publicly about what's going on in the country. So they were getting this pressure from both sides, and they were caught in between. And you saw signs of it. In the first game, they decided not to sing the national anthem because they were feeling that pressure from people back home. And then, you saw in the second game, they sort of mouthed it or lipped this national anthem without really wanting to sing it. So you see how bad of a situation they were put in. And that's the mental part that I feel that they were dealing with the whole time.
CNN reported recently that players could face retribution for not singing the Republic's national anthem prior to its World Cup opener. Do you worry about the players, Omid?
I mean, I felt at the beginning, if as a group, 26 players, they had come out and they made a statement about, hey, we stand with our people. I don't think anything could have been done, against them or, any retributions when they go back home. But they didn't do that. So now they're getting pressure from people. And then, they sort of went with what they were told to do during the World Cup. So I don't see anything happening to any of the players. There's one particular player, Sardar Azmoun, who even in the last game didn't sing the national anthem. I worry about him a little bit, but he's a very well-known figure, very popular figure. And the government, as brutal as they are back in Iran right now, I don't think they can touch people like that. Some of the lesser known people, and we've seen some athletes voice their opinions about what's going on, and they've been arrested, they've been possibly tortured. But, these bigger figures, I don't think they can touch them.
Prior to the big match with the U.S. men's national team, we saw on an American social media channel an altered Iranian flag. Iran saying the modified flag saw the Americans remove the Allah symbol. Can you just give us some perspective on what this might have meant to players, maybe not just the players, but Iranians as a whole when this happens and they see the flag in this way?
I can tell you the people that are living on the streets in Iran and protesting, I can assure you they were ecstatic about the move to remove that symbol in the flag. But obviously that did not sit well with the government and obviously the Iranian Federation. So you have this feeling of, elation and the fact that the U.S. is standing behind the people. And at the same time, the government is constantly trying to suppress those feelings. What's your perspective on seeing such a outcry from the public and seeing public protests against the government here? And we've seen the last couple of months after the death of Mahsa Amini. Yeah, my personal feelings, I'm with my people. I was born and raised here, but obviously both my parents are from Iran, and I've lived in Iran for many years and worked there. And I know I've seen it with my own eyes, what goes on in Iran. So I I empathize with the people in Iran, and I feel like after 43 years of this regime and the oppressive ways of this regime, it's time for a change.
U.S. men's national team and Iran play the big game. The U.S. men's national team triumphs 1-0. But I want to take you back to about the 96th or 97th minute. Mehdi Taremi there in the 97th minute getting maybe pulled down in the box or there was some incidental contact. Ultimately, the replay review stands with a clean play. Where was your heart at this moment? You have the U.S. men's national team going against Iran and a potential for a big tying goal that could help Iran. Where were you at this time?
Yeah, usually my feelings would be conflicted. It's tough. I've grown up here, worked with a lot of these players that are playing on the national team when I was coach of the U18 and assisting Tab with the U20s. So, you could see how my feelings could be, 1 minute here and 1 minute there. But this time there was no conflict. I wanted the U.S. to win. I was pulling for the boys to pull through. And obviously in those finishing moments of the game, I was on my toes. I was jumping up and down, but gladly, our boys were able to pull through and get the win and get through the group.
You just mentioned Tab Ramos. This is a guy that you're talking to a lot. He's the coach of Hartford Athletic, and Dan Gaspar and Omid Namazi. These are some big names here with Hartford Athletic. What are you thinking about the organization and the structure that you all have put together to put a soccer team on the pitch here at Trinity Health Stadium?
Yeah, I mean, a few months back, Ray Reid, look at me forgetting Ray Reid, the legendary UConn coach. Yeah, you can't forget Ray. Ray was hired here to be the technical director. He took over the coaching reins for a little bit, and he will tell you he did not come in here to coach the team. So once a few games went by, he started the search for the new head coach. And as he says, the first name that came to his mind was Tab, and he pursued Tab. And I know because I talked to Tab constantly, a few times a week. I was in Houston and he was in New Jersey, but we communicated, and I know how Ray was very persuasive in trying to get Tab here and coaching the Hartford Athletic. And even though, Tab, obviously as a player has done everything that a player can do, having played in 3 World Cups, played at, one of the first players that went overseas and had success playing in Mexico and in Europe. But then also as a coach, he was the youth technical director for many years, working with U.S. Soccer, and he instituted a lot of good practices in what we did. And I'm talking about we as some of the youth coaches with the national teams. He instituted a lot of good practices and really took that program to the next level. And you see a lot of that work coming through. With the players that are playing right now for the national team. So Ray's persuasion, I guess, came to a head, and Tab accepted the job. Immediately, Tab reached out to me. He said, I need you to be here with me, and we could do this together. And that's how I ended up here. Obviously, we have big goals. The expectations are high. Mm-hmm. I think the franchise and the ownership has gone out of their way to make sure that they put the best staff together. And, the hiring of Tab, myself, Dan Gaspar is the head of the goalkeepers and the goalkeeper coach. And then Ray Reid, obviously, the legendary coach here in Connecticut, being the technical director. I don't think you'll find a better staff around. anywhere in the country, whether it's MLS or USL. So a lot of commitment on the franchises side, on the ownership side. With that comes a lot of expectation, and we know that we want to try to put the best team together for next year, and we want to win now.
Ray Reid won a national championship at UConn, putting UConn soccer on the map. And then Tab Ramos, when he came back to America to play soccer and played for the Metro Stars, that was a big moment for Major League Soccer back in the 90s. These are some big names, as you mentioned. And then we have you as the scouting director and an assistant coach. Can you just kind of tell me how you fit into all this great soccer nucleus that you guys have put together here in Hartford?
Yeah, obviously my first role is an assistant coach. So, trying to, prepare the team, take them through training sessions, being, a crutch for Tab and everything that we do in order to get the team prepared, whether it's from preseason and all the way through preseason. And then once we get into the season and every day in training sessions. But also I have another role, and that's the head of scouting. And we're putting together a good depth chart of players around the country that we feel that could come in and help us out. Obviously, we're not going to get every single player that we put our fingers on, but we're hard at work trying to put the best squad together for the upcoming season, which will be March of 2023.
I got just about a couple minutes left, so we got to get through this last question or two very quickly here. Just looking at the closing up 2022, finishing 10th in the Eastern Conference, I imagine it wasn't a season that you guys wanted to have.
No, I mean, obviously, even though we're a new franchise, it's in an infancy, but, again, the expectations are we need to be a playoff team first and foremost. And then from there, contend for a championship. And that's why someone like Tab was brought in. That's why some of the other guys that we've been talking about have been brought in. And, our goal is to put a team together that's a playoff team. And, we're trying to put the pieces to that puzzle together as we speak.
6 players on the team thus far, as I understand it. What do you think about 2023? About a minute to go.
I have high hopes. I mean, you only see the 6 players that we've signed. There's a lot of work that's going on in the background, and we have a lot of good players that will be committed to winning here in Hartford on the hook, and we're constantly talking and negotiating with them. And I think the finished product will be something that the people in Hartford would be proud of.
Thank you so much for joining us, Omid Namazi, talking about Hartford Athletic, who you can see at Trinity Health Stadium in Hartford. Thank you for joining us today, Omid.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
I'm Frankie Graziano. Today's show produced by the great Katie Pellico, our technical producer, Kat Pastor. Hey, download Where We Live anytime on your favorite podcast app. Thank you for listening to the World Cup Where We Live. Take care.